Recording in progress.
My dear colleagues and students, Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. I'm Azizul Nahar, Assistant Professor, Department of Law and Human Rights, University of Asia Pacific. Welcome everyone to our virtual international conference on the impact of COVID-19 in the legal field. 35 students from 8 different countries presented their papers in the last 9 sessions. Now, a video record on 9 conference sessions over the last 3 days will be played. I would kindly request you all to have a look on the video.
Sound silo na sound sala? I don't know.
Dr. Siddiqui, if you don't mind my interruption, we can't hear anything.
Yes, I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to fix that.
Okay.
Hello? Sound nahi to?
Well, we can't hear. We can see a lady speaking, but we can't hear anything.
However, at the outset, I thank the organizers of the conference from the core of my heart for choosing such a time-befitting topic. It goes without saying that the COVID-19 pandemic is a global catastrophe. It has badly battered the social, economic, and cultural life of the people worldwide.
I would now request Mr. Karim Reza Chaudhary to share a few words with us. Sir?
Come and come in this opening ceremony of this particular seminar that we are holding under such pandemic situation in this country. I was quite amazed to listen to Justice Manul Islam Chaudhary, who vividly, clearly indicated as to what the situation in this particular country was. As you know, that we are a poor country. People from villages, they have to go to the high court, to the courts.
Now I would like to request our today's chief guest, Mr. Justice Hemant Lakshman Gathale, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, to deliver his speech.
As far as hearing of the court matters are concerned, now in a city like Mumbai, Dhaka is also a very big, sprawling city. People have to come from a distance. Now traveling otherwise also is quite cumbersome. But now because of pandemic, you see the local trains, the travel by those local trains has been restricted.
We are almost at the end of our opening ceremony. I would request Dr. Chaudhary Ishraf Ahmed Siddiqui, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Law and Human Rights, University of Asia Pacific, to give the vote of thanks.
Have found the time to come to the opening ceremony of our international conference. This is in fact one of the only international conferences that is being organized by a university in Bangladesh in this international stature. So we're extremely proud of that. I'll just finish by saying 2 important things. What is the purpose of holding this international?
Same situation, I believe that it will be much relatable to all of us as well. So we'll briefly discuss on same situation. I believe that
Zarifur Rahman. I'm currently a senior law student at the University of Dhaka. Today I'm going to talk about a legal perspective on secondary victimization in Bangladesh. contextualizing with rape in COVID-19. This paper has been contributed both by me and the co-author Suraya Khatun.
Agenda or challenge here that can be looked at. Number one. Number two, can we look at the issue of gender? There are, I was looking at some of the figures on this economy, and it seems that men are benefiting more than women. Similarly, men who are coming from a higher educated
generally, but some of which will have relevance for individual paper presenters, I hope. And then
you are seeking your answer. So the forum is open now.
You were going to search. So can you please clear me about your research question?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really interesting question. First of all, regarding your query about the video, if you notice the video closely, on the corner of the video, it's cited that the video is from Vice News. I will properly share
on your paper as well. And thank you, the organizer. I think we have another session of this day. I request you all and invite all to attend in our subsequent sessions as well to our conference.
And I hope all presenters are present here with their papers. And you are already introduced by...
it should be unjustified for the victims. That's all from my side. And thanks to all for hearing me with patience.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you for your nice
paper today is COVID-19 and its impact on the R&D sector of Bangladesh. I would like to share for my paper kind of the wages of the workers, how the R&D sector is affecting other sectors, how there has been people.
Yeah,
I'm focusing on the 3 points mainly, that is refusal of treatment, shortage of supply of equipment and of essential services.
Distinguished panelist, Dr. A.K.M. Imdadullah, sir.
Right to express, right to communication can be confined or limited. It is very thing. And this kind of cartel of human rights, fundamental human rights.
To talk a bit more on the definition of human rights, to talk more about the inalienability, universality, and indivisibility of human rights, looking at and
the data is from the secondary forum. Have you got me?
Yes, ma'am.
Nabila? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I got you.
There will be no confusion. Thank you so much.
With these few words, I would like to conclude the session. Thank you very much for attending the program, and thank you again.
Our guests, our panelists are the Farmin Islam, Professor of Law, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, and our another distinguished professor is Vijay Prasad Jaswal, lecturer, School of Law, Khartoum University. There are
presenter who are going to present their paper. So at first, I am going to introduce Professor Ahmed's name. She's also a student of Department of Law and Human Rights, University of the Asia Pacific. And
first of all, the cultural factors. Our culture, what we used to see and witness by ourselves, are happening.
Violence against rural women, and the second one, in what ways may domestic violence against women be eliminated in Bangladesh? Well, first of all, 4 reasons behind the domestic violence, and the second one, how I can root out this problem from Bangladesh. Here is the list of my synopsis of the victims haven't received the support they need, and domestic violence is increasingly seen as human rights and public health issue also.
With this procedural bias has proven to be fatal and deadly to vulnerable women and female victims. So treating this critical issue as if it were a regular day will simply serve to distract us from real-life situation of women's safety during lockdown.
As prolonged lockdown is no longer a practical approach, governments are trying their best to implement social distancing. But as we have seen, that implementing social distancing with or without lockdown is very difficult. And it is more challenging to implement social distancing in the present.
About the paper.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to be one of the panelists in this international conference. Physically trying to connect with the pandemic with the other.
And which is also very not easy. To primary data, I have to say that having access is one thing, but then being able to question women directly, put them, making the question and then having to.
Welcome to the session. Thank you for being with us. In this session, we will have 4 papers presented by the participants.
Mr. Feedbacks and comments on the presented papers, Mr. Iqtidar Ahmed, former Registrar General, Supreme Court of Bangladesh and Chairman Minimum Wages Board, and Dr. Jamila Choudhury, Professor, Faculty of Law, University of Dhaka, as distinguished panelist. Good afternoon, sir.
Right. One might wonder how international law is connected with COVID-19. International law is a set of rules, both underscoring that novel coronavirus does not observe fatal lines and does not distinguish between combatants and civilians. Given the virus potency, states have a responsibility to deliver.
Sudden suspension of on-campus classes obstruct the learning process of students, as students do not have
mentioned in various provisions in Part 3 of the Constitution, which contains the fundamental rights that should be guaranteed for all citizens of Bangladesh, irrespective of any of the differences. And even here, we can classify citizens into 2 categories. How so? One is in general.
I am requesting our distinguished panelist, Dr. Jamila Choudhury, Professor, Department of Law, University of Dhaka, to give her feedback.
Within us, I'm not supporting the way that it's a very good, it's a blessing things for us. But within a invisible enigma, within a enemy which is not visible, we should find some good if it is really pronounce that one. So in today's platform, if I leave the positiveness of COVID-19, I must say both national stream and international stream going together.
I would like to request our another distinguished panelist, Mr. Ahmed, former Registrar General, Supreme Court of Bangladesh and Chairman, Minimum Wages Board, to share his feedbacks.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Saleh Akram, and thank you also, Professor Dr. Jamila, for your wonderful discussion. So long we have heard deliberations of the presenters and panelists. Although 4 presenters were supposed to present their papers, but in reality we found that 3 presenters, and among those 3 who were joint presenters, they presented their papers. What I find, all the papers are rich. The presenters put a lot of endeavors to prepare such analytical paper. I appreciate their efforts. I also appreciate the initiative of Asia Pacific University for organizing such time-oriented international seminar, which has been now being faced by different countries of the world due to actually transmission across borders, and for its prevention there is need of concerted international response. Then the next paper was presented by Mr. Mohammad Pavel Sarkar.
Courts are undertaking to have digital evidence. Because when the Law Commission, they were trying to draft a law on virtual court system, I was invited there. And one particular issue was how to entertain the different sorts of evidences.
And one burning issue was how to differentiate between digital and virtual evidence. Since there are many retired judges there and some acting judges, since they didn't have any knowledge, particularly on digital format or type.
I can't take any more questions. We have a shortage of time. Thanks again to the panelists, participants, and audiences. Stay safe and stay at home. We will
Now, I would kindly request Professor Dr. Mohammad Sultan Mahmood, Acting Vice Chancellor, University of Asia Pacific, to deliver his information.
Thank you, Azizullah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable chief guests, special guests, faculty and students, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I am extremely happy that the Department of Law and Human Rights, in partnership with Madanjit Singh, South Asian Institute of Advanced Legal and Human Rights Studies, has organized this virtual international conference on the impact of COVID-19 in the legal field. The University of Asia Pacific was one of the first universities to start online education once the pandemic hit Bangladesh. The Department of Law and Human Rights was also the first department to continue with their legal education online in the inter-university. I'm also proud of the fact that the Department of Law and Human Rights of UAP is the only law department in Bangladesh providing an international LLM degree in partnership with UNESCO, Madanjit Singh South Asian Foundation. The entire world is now going through one of the most difficult times that it has ever faced in the last 100 years. Millions of people have died while thousands are being infected by COVID-19 every day. Bangladesh is also going through an exceedingly difficult time at the moment. This difficult time, I hope this international conference has provided the platform for students from all over the world to share their views and experiences on COVID-19. And it has transformed the legal profession and the legal field in general. I hope all the 35 participants from different countries in this conference will keep in touch with each other so that this bonding that they had over the last 3 days through the internet lasts in the long run. I also hope that the experience that they have gained through this conference will help them in the future. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this international conference for doing a great job in hosting an event.
The camera is louder, slightly. So this is the camera.
I would also like to thank the participants and the panelists for participating in this conference and the international and local guests for attending this closing ceremony. Please stay safe and well till we can again meet in person in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We are delighted to have with us Mr. Ovito Rodrigo, SAF Chairperson, Sri Lanka, as a special guest. I would kindly request him to deliver his speech.
Thank you. I presume you can all hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right. Let me first, on behalf of the South Asia Foundation Sri Lanka chapter, extend greetings to all of you and all the participants, as well as the organizers, and give to you from SAF Colombo, Sri Lanka, our best wishes. I want to congratulate also the UNESCO Madanjit Singh South Asia Institute of Advanced Legal Studies and the University of Asia Pacific for conducting and concluding what I'm told was a very successful conference, despite all of the challenges that are around at this time. And I'm particularly delighted that to see that there is a Sri Lankan contributor from the Kothalawala Defence Academy who has presented a paper at this conference. And might I just say that this conference embodies the spirit also of the Madanjit Singh Foundation and SAF, that we really comprise a South Asian family, that we can interact and get to know each other from the different parts of South Asia. And it is indeed a pleasure and honor for me to be here with you. Let me just very briefly mention some things about the situation in the legal field in Sri Lanka. And due to the pandemic, we are presently in a lockdown situation, but the courts are functioning partially. They're taking up urgent matters. And the good news is that we have started, at least informally, what are called, what you would know as virtual hearings. And that means that we can cross-examine witnesses, we can make submissions to court, all of that virtually, which has been a huge advantage for those who naturally are not so inclined to attend court. It has also been a bonus to the judges. It's still informal, but that's what's happening presently in Sri Lanka. Also, since the topic of the conference is about the pandemic, I thought I would just touch on the legal position in Sri Lanka with regard to this sort of event. In Sri Lanka, although we follow a common law tradition, we also have the Roman Dutch law system, which has developed over the years, which was introduced first to Sri Lanka during the Dutch occupation of Sri Lanka. And the only difference is in nomenclature, I should say, because though we don't have a doctrine of frustration unless it is contractually provided for, in Sri Lanka we have a concept called supervening impossibility, which you might wonder what it is. It is very similar to frustration, and in effect it amounts to virtually the same thing, but there are minor variations. So this may be something that you might have some interest in, because it is analogous to frustration, and as far as I know, the only other doctrine that is analogous to frustration and followed in Roman Dutch law countries. I also recently saw legislation that is in the offing in Sri Lanka, where there will be some time given or a moratorium given, the statute of limitations or prescription, as we call in Sri Lanka, that will be amended by amending legislation, so that the time taken during the pandemic will be taken out of even contracts that are to be performed during that time. after making an application to court. So you might find that of interest. I'd be happy to share that with you at some point. Having said that, all of this, may I again wish all of you my best on behalf of the South Asia Foundation Colombo chapter, and congratulate the organizers again for effectively conducting an international conference during this time. And thank you for asking me, and it has truly been a pleasure to be part of you and in this ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will honor to have with us Mr. Justice Mohammad Abdul Mutin, Honorable former Justice of the Appellate Division, Supreme Court of Bangladesh, as a special guest. I would kindly request him to deliver his speech.
Am I heard?
Yes.
Yes,
sir, we can hear you. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me as a participant in your very rare seminar because of this adverse situation caused by the pandemic. However, we are glad to hear that you have been working for the last 3 days since 17th, and the 8 countries have already participated in this seminar and sharing their experience and their ordeals and their advantages in this situation. Bangladesh, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, as you know, we are not technologically very much advanced, and therefore, outside the Dhaka, it's a capital of Bangladesh, we are in difficulty because the lawyers of the council, that is the district courts, they are not equipped with internet, so much of internet of quality and other facilities as we are having in Dhaka. So I don't know how they are participating in this seminar so that we could hear their sufferings and their disadvantages, how the court is running, how they are communicating with their client. So far, Dhaka is concerned, unlike America or even Sri Lanka, we do not have that 2 systems of lawyers, of the courtroom lawyers or Wall Street lawyers. We are almost of the same class, doing the same courtroom. Without courtroom, we do not flourish. We do not excel. So, since the courts are not functioning, the lawyers are not getting any advantage of the courtroom performances. In other countries, particularly in America, you have seen there is a scheme like recording the proceedings of the court. May I please the court or something like that? There is a system. The entire proceeding is being recorded so that the clients and the lawyers could get advantage of the experiences, how the judges behave in the court, how they interact with the lawyers, etc., etc. But since the court is not functioning, our lawyers are not in a position to get any experience how the court functions, how the judges put questions, how it is answered, how much time limit is given to particular lawyers. Even then, the court is functioning somehow, and we have some difficulties because of the economic conditions of the lawyers. Bar Council is not that equipped to come to the succor of the lawyers suffering from the economic disadvantages. Say they are the respective bar associations, they do not have sufficient funds to cope with the situation that has arisen now. I have some information that some bar associations have given loan to the lawyers, but it is not possible for some other less advantageous bar associations, unlike say Dhaka Bar or Sylhet Bar or say Kumilla Bar. There are bars which they are suffering difficulties. So in this situation, what the the state can do, what the government can do. That is a pertinent question. And there should be some resolution from this seminar so that the government can come to the aid of the sufferings of the lawyers by giving aid to the at least to the technical side of the profession, namely that is internet connections may be updated, or the expenditure or the bills may be subsidized by the government. So I shall hear more from the participants about the proposals or what can be done in future, because it appears that this epidemic is not taking leave of us. Some people, some say it is going, but the experience says that no, it may live with us, and we shall live with it peacefully. And how can we live peacefully with this pandemic, whatever you say? This is a question, and how we can share the legal. We cannot aid the country, our people with money, but we can give them with wisdom, with knowledge to solve the problems. And the collective wisdom of these 8 countries, at least, and other participants may come out with some solutions so that we can move forward and live profitably even in this pandemic situation. I thank you, the organizers, that is the UNESCO and what is UMSAILS and Bangladesh, that is our Asia Pacific University, for taking this brave venture in such a situation. And I once again thank you for sharing.
Ms. Nahar, I think sir's internet has just gone out. Ms. Nahar.
I can't hear.
Have I been heard?
Yes, sir. Last, we heard you. We just couldn't hear the last 2 words.
Yes, I cannot hear now. Hear you.
Can you hear us, sir?
We can hear you, but we cannot hear Azur Nahar.
Okay. Right. Now, I'd kindly request our next guest, Madam France Marquette, the Principal Trustee of Madanjit Singh Foundation, to give her speech as the special guest. Madam Marquette. Madam France Marquette.
Conference.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can all hear you. We can't hear you at the moment.
Because my...
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. So, good evening. I'm humbled and honored but I would like to start by thanking Dr. Kamal Hussain, who is the instigator of all this. He happened to meet Madanjit Singh in Mexico at a UNESCO conference in the 90s. Nearly a decade after, we met again, this time in Dhaka, invited by him to shape up the Madanjit Singh South Asian Institute of Advanced Legal and Human Rights Studies. Then the institute was created for the benefit of students from the SAARC countries. I can't miss to remember Dr. Jamilur Raza Chaudhary, who left us due to the COVID. My thanks will go to the eminent people who graciously accepted to participate. Mr. Justice Gokhale, former Justice of Supreme Court of India, Professor Asono, Professor of Law from Kansai University, Japan, Mr. Justice Moinul Islam Chaudhary, former Justice of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, Mr. Justice M.A. Martin, former Justice of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, Mr. C.M. Shafi Sami, Mr. Arvindo Rodrigo, Professor Sultan Mahmood, the Department of Law and Human Rights of the University of Asia Pacific, and in partnership with the UMSAILS, that means the UNESCO Madanjit Singh South Asian Institute of Advanced Legal and Human Rights Studies. But I must not forget the 35 students from 8 different countries that presented their papers, and the official media partner, the Daily Star. In the introduction of her book, Azadi, that means freedom, Arundhati Roy writes, and I quote, "Coronavirus has brought with it another more terrible understanding of Azadi. The free virus that had made nonsense of international borders, incarcerated whole populations, and brought the modern world to halt like nothing else ever could. It casted different lights on the lives we have lived so far. It forces us to question the values we have built modern societies on, what we've chosen to worship, and what we cast aside. For me, it's analysis of a period we went through and the powerful message it delivers, what we chosen to worship and what we cast aside, could well be applied in today's conference, Impact of COVID-19 in the Legal Field. Eminent people will express their opinion, fruit of a long and meaningful career, and youngsters will try to bring about new experiences in an up-to-now unknown world. Large areas of the economy are in tatters, bringing more poverty, increase of violence. Education was also being affected. But what brings us together today, it is the impact in the legal field. I had the opportunity to listen to some very interesting papers made by the young students. I hope that the reflection coming out of these 3 days of conference will bring new understanding of the legal problem faced today, freedom and responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Now, I would kindly request Mr. C.M. Shafi Sami, Chairman, Board of Trustee, UAP, and Vice Chairman, SAILS, to deliver his speech.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Barrister Ishraq Siddiqui, Head of the Department of LHR in the University of UAP. Professor Sultan Mahmood, the Acting Vice Chancellor of the University of Asia Pacific. Madame France Maquet, Principal Trustee of the UNESCO MS South Asia Foundation. Mr. Justice M. Mateen, Mr. Arvindo Rodrigo, Chairperson SAILS Sri Lanka, and my very respected, distinguished legal luminary of Bangladesh and in international field, Dr. Kamal Hussein, and all my distinguished guests. Good evening, good morning, and bonsoir. I commend the UMSAILS-UAP effort to organize this seminar. They have jointly organized this seminar. LHR Department of the University of Asia Pacific regularly organizes spring school events and various conferences. But this one is a landmark achievement for them. In the first International Students Conference on the pandemic, I commend the energetic role of the head of the department, Dr. Siddiqui, and his colleagues in the department for taking this initiative, in which 35 students from 8 countries have, and drawn from public and private universities, have participated. And we have had a glimpse of various sessions. And I think it was also very thoughtful of the organizers to familiarize us with what happened over the last 3 days. And going through the glimpses, I was regretting that I did not have the opportunity to attend all the 9 sessions. I would have been personally greatly benefited if I had done that. But I will look forward to receiving the reports, and I am sure all of us will be greatly benefited by those. I would also like to commend the presenters of the papers and the discussants who have made valuable contribution on the topic that was the theme of the international conference. This has been a very appropriate subject to address, and the initiative has been very timely. All over the world, over the centuries, we have experienced various types of pandemics, starting with, I would not say starting with, but maybe in our recent living memory, the Black Death, the Spanish flu, the third plague pandemic, and so on and so forth, which have caused great disasters in the world and in many ways have changed the course of world history. In terms of maybe the casualties, both of death and of other injuries caused to the health and economy of various countries, the present COVID-19 pandemic may be a little sort of, in terms of the impact, a little less, it may have inflicted a little less damage on the overall situation, global situation. But in another way, I think it has been a very, very devastating experience for the globe. Mainly because these days, compared to the days of, let's say, 1346 or 1918, the globe is more interconnected, more dependent on each other. Call it commercially, call it trade-wise, call it industrial production-wise, call it communication-wise, call it tourism, or whatever way. The interdependence has increased over the last century very, very significantly. So that way, the devastation caused to the global economy has been very, very great. And that way, may not be in terms of numbers of casualties, but in terms of impact, it has left a very, very significantly adverse impact on the globe. So I am very happy that UAP, the LHR department of the UAP, has organized this international conference to highlight various issues. And it has covered not only the legal aspects, and I must commend them on that they have covered a whole lot of socio-economic legal aspects in this 3-day conference. I also take a great deal of pride from the fact that they have very, very effectively addressed the causes and the sufferings that are being faced by the various vulnerable groups. In many countries in the world these days, including very developed countries, a lot of emphasis is being placed on entrepreneurs, how to help them out, on industrialists, how to help them out, on production machineries, and various other what are considered to be engines of growth to give them support, which is commendable, which is perhaps they are doing it, why perhaps they are doing it rightly. After all, the global economy has to survive. But at the same time, it is with some concern that we notice, and there is a certain global inadequate attention being paid to the sufferings of the vulnerable groups, those who will live below poverty line, those who have to live from hand to mouth, those who depend on daily income, and how adversely they are being affected. It is, I think, goes to the credit of the organizers that they have addressed those issues also. And I am particularly happy that they have done that. One of the vulnerable groups is students, particularly in the third world countries of which we belong. And there, it has been mentioned that lack of technological advance has made it very difficult for this group to pursue their education. The guardians, the parents of this group of students, to ensure that their wards, their children are getting education even in these adverse conditions, and that they are able to take their position not only in sustaining the economy of the nation, sustaining the economy of the country, but also providing support to the poverty-stricken families. And it is in this context that I would like to commend the management of the administration, the faculty members of the UAP, that at a time when we were not very sure of the impact and the durability and the length of the pandemic that will engulf the globe. And early in 2020, in the month of March, we decided, the Board of Trustees decided, that we should address the possibility of providing online teaching to our students to ameliorate the conditions that I have already stated, the conditions of the students, the conditions of the parents and the guardians of the students. And it goes to the credit of the faculty, it goes to the credit of the administration. And in this context, I would particularly remember my former friend and colleague, Professor Jamil Raza Chaudhry, who took initiative, which was fully supported by his colleagues, the former Pro-Vice Chancellor, the present Pro-Vice Chancellor, and all the others in energizing the faculty to go beyond the barriers of technological inadequacies, and in a poverty-stricken society like in Bangladesh, where students are spread in far-flung areas, to ensure to develop a model of education which will be available to them. And that way, I can take legitimate pride because of my association with this university, that the system that has been adopted by this university has become a precursor in this country, and many other universities have followed suit. And as a result, a vast majority of students and their guardians and the poverty-stricken society has benefited considerably. I would like to commend the University of Asia Pacific and its faculty and its administration for contributing this great gift to the nation. I would perhaps like to conclude here, but I would like to mention one more point, just to emphasize the fact that mention has been made of the inadequacies and the hardship that it is the pandemic is causing to the legal profession. It is, of course, a very important aspect to look into. But at the same time, I would also urge upon the legal experts to address themselves to the problems and the inadequacies that the clients, those who seek legal redress from the courts of the country and from the legal community, that their cause is also being addressed. And in this particular context, I would also like to request the students and the legal experts, and I see in the conference there were very prominent legal experts of the country who participated, to examine the possibilities of finding ways and means for protecting the vulnerable groups from the considerations of force majeure, the doctrine of force majeure, which on many occasions act against the vulnerable group. I think I would like to end here, but not before commending the emphasis that the conference, the participants, the paper presenters, and the discussants have brought to bear upon the issues of human rights. And I commend the organizers for that. With these few words, I would like to thank you all.
Thank you, sir. All the participants have done really well in the last 3 days. We'll give prizes to the best and runner-up positions. I would kindly request Mohammad Asadujaman, Associate Professor, Department of Law and Human Rights, UAP, and convener of the Virtual International Conference, to declare the names of the winners.
Thank you, Azur Nahar. Actually, as you told, all papers presenters performed very well. We faced extremely difficulty to select the best one. However, for the sake of conference requirement, we have to select some papers. Now, this is the time to declare result. Let me start from the third best papers. Third best papers, 5 papers has been selected as the third best papers. Number 1 is Padda Rizal. She is from Nepal and a student of UMSAIL LLM program of University of Asia Pacific. Number 2, that is third best category. I am telling the first best papers category. Next paper is Jerin Tasnim Rahman, paper presenter Jerin Tasnim Rahman. She is affiliated with University of Dhaka. Third paper is Bushra Haq. She is also a student of University of Dhaka. Next, Ahmed Ragib Chaudhuri. He is also affiliated with University of Dhaka. Fifth one is Shahriar Islam Shobon. He is a student of University of Asia Pacific. This first paper, these 5 papers combinedly selected as the third best papers. Now, I am going to declare the second best papers category. Here, one paper is jointly written by Nikhil Dongal. He or she is a student of Kathmandu School of Law from Nepal, and joint author is Soyoda Anjuman Ara Tipti. She is UMSAIL LLM student, University of Asia Pacific. Another second best paper category presenter is Mahdi Ezaz Masood. He is from Erasmus University, Netherlands. Third, under second best paper category, Fahd bin Siddiq. He is UMSAIL LLM student of University of Asia Pacific. Now, this is the time to declare the first best paper category. At this moment, I would like to request our chief guest, Dr. Kamal Hussain, to declare the first best paper presenters. Dr. Kamal Hussain, sir.
Thank you. I am delighted to announce the Best Paper Award to Ali Mushraf and Jalaluddin Ahmad, both from Dhaka University. And the third is to Sushma Giri, Purvanchal University, Nepal.
Congratulations, all of them, and best wishes to all paper presenters. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would kindly request Dr. Kamal Hussain, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of Bangladesh and Chairperson SAILS, to deliver his piece as his chief guest of the closing session.
Thank you. The impact of COVID-19 has been felt all around the world. The entire world has felt its devastating impact. Millions have died, while thousands are infected every day. Against this backdrop, all the students had a difficult time to continue with their studies online. The legal profession in Bangladesh also went through a massive change as a new law had to be passed for the courts to conduct online hearings. Online hearings are a new phenomenon in Bangladesh, and although it has its benefits, it is difficult for Bangladesh lawyers to adapt to such changes without preparation. Most of the lawyers are also not used to making submissions before a court online, and both the judges and lawyers have to adapt to this change. However, the connection of the internet was a major hindrance, as everyone does not have uninterrupted access to internet connection. But despite all odds, the lawyer fraternity in Bangladesh has adapted well, and the judges have also done well, as they are also not adequately prepared and trained for such a situation. COVID-19 has also shown the technological disparity among others in Bangladesh. While it's well off in our society has access to internet connection, the millions living in villages and other towns do not have any internet connection. The students in general have suffered due to this. I hope the government will take measures to improve the situation in the future. I am told that 35 papers were presented at the conference from students all over the world. I hope this experience will help them to foster greater cooperation and understanding among each other, as this is the motto of both SOF and SAILS. Students should also use this experience to stay connected with each other and to help each other through their expertise. I would like to thank the organizers, especially SAILS and the Department of Law and Human Rights, UAP in organizing this international conference. I would also like to thank the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the University of Asia Pacific and the Acting Vice Chancellor of UAP for helping the smooth organization of this conference. To all students and participants, COVID-19 has taught us not to take things for granted, so keep steady and humble and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would kindly request Dr. Chaudhary Ishraq Ahmed Siddiqui, Associate Professor at Head, Department of Law and Human Rights, University of Asia Pacific, and Deputy Director, Sales, to convey a vote of thanks.
Honorable Chief Guest, distinguished guests, Acting Vice Chancellor, faculties, and fellow students, good evening and Assalamu alaikum. I'm extremely proud and happy that UNESCO Madanjit Singh South Asian Institute of Advanced Legal and Human Rights Studies, in partnership with the Department of Law and Human Rights, were able to organize such a big event, which not only helped the students and gave them a platform, but also allowed us to share our various experiences. In order to host this program and this event, I would like to thank all the faculty members of the Department of Law and Human Rights. I want to thank Mr. Abdul Rahim, Assistant Professor, Department of Law and Human Rights, Ms. Nazia Wahab, Assistant Professor, Mr. Rezaur Rahman, Assistant Professor, Mr. Saleh Akram, Assistant Professor, Mr. Azul Nahar, Assistant Professor, Miss Alida Bindasaki, Lecturer, Mr. Sajjad Hussain, Lecturer, and Ms. Farzana Akhtar. Special thanks also goes to Mr. Asaduzzaman, former head of the department, for helping the department in order to choose the panelists and also carrying out various works. And special thanks also goes to Mr. Saleh Akram for all his help. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists, distinguished panelists who had agreed to become panelists in this important program. And we had Professor Mizanur Rahman, Dr. Shahidin Malik, Professor Jamila, and we also had a lot of different professors from the University of Dhaka to help us give feedback and comments on the papers that were presented by the students. So we were extremely grateful to them. I must also thank Mr. Justice Moinul Islam Chaudhary, and also want to thank Mr. Mahfuzul Akshubun and Professor Jamila Chaudhary as well, and because they were there in most of the sessions, and I was extremely surprised and honored that someone of their stature took the time to come and see what the students had to present and give their comments and feedback. So I thought that was extremely helpful, and I hope the students will be benefited from their comments as well. And finally, I want to thank all the students who had participated in this international conference, both from home and from abroad. And what you need to understand that this entire conference was only done so that the students from all over the world, including Bangladesh, can get a platform where they can share their experience, where they can document their research and can get the feedback. If the students are benefited, only then our conference can be claimed to have been really successful. I hope that you would learn from each other. I hope that you take into account the various feedback and evaluation given by the panelists and would make your paper better and make your research capability better as well. So with that, I want to thank everyone, all the organizers, and also SAILS and University of Asia Pacific for helping us organize this program. Stay well and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This ends our global. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.